everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Ayvi Islam, and I'm part of the implementation team at Solvexia. During this webinar, I will present to you our case study named Smarter Contracts. And this presentation will take 20 minutes to get through. And at the end, we will try to answer any questions you may have. Let's get started with an outline of today's webinar. Firstly, I will go through the differences of smarter contracts built in Solvexia versus the smarter contracts in blockchain. I will then pursue with a simple demo where we will be generating a contract in Solvexia. And then I will also show you some downstream processes like invoicing and update. We will then end up with our Q&A session. At the end of the following presentation, you will be able to understand what a smart contract is within the context of Solvexia, where they fit in your business, and you'll also learn how to build a smart contract. So let's get started with a bit of the background of smart contracts and where the idea came to be. Over the last years, there has been a massive hype surrounding blockchain technology. We have had lots of people come to us and talk about all the exciting things they want to do with this tech. A popular area in particular is for smart contracts as a means of addressing issues in their existing contract management processes. The challenge for most companies, though, is that blockchain and the industry around it is still in its infancy. We think that the tech itself is years away from being a viable solution that your average company can use for production purposes. Although people do tend to default to blockchain smart contract as the solution, we realized that what they actually needed was a more seamless experience when it comes to contract generation, approval, and management. The key problems that everyone says they want to address with blockchain smart contracts includes reducing the time to create and review contracts, eliminate the need for human beings to check every aspect of contracts, particularly standardized items. They also want better tracking and analytics to understand where all of their contracts are at. Overall, manual processes have so many roadblocks that it slows down an essential part of the business. And its lack of overall traceability and transparency makes it vulnerable to downstream risk. We believe that automation using Solvexia can readily address these issues. And through these businesses' profile in mind, we created Smarter Contract, an automated legal documentation process built using many of Solvexia's existing features, such as auto-population. This allows for more standardization of the process. It leaves mundane, repetitive tasks away from staff, ensuring a consistent and error-free draft. Our processes can be adapted for both Word and PDF document generation. Our second feature is checks. This allows to provide a simpler, mean, and time-efficient way to condense the most important elements of your contract and to be checked against a standard portfolio versus the submitted one. Approval requests ensures that the right authority to have control over the process where their expertise is needed the most. Then we have tracking and analytics, which provides a way to record the process from A to Z, from time of creation to response rate and version control history. The process can live in your database and be viewed transparently. This is an example of our online dashboards. I will go through it in a bit more detail during our demo session. Finally, we have cloud-based storage, which allows everything from the contract's content to generation to management to live in one centralized place. These information can be utilized in other areas of your businesses, such as updates, reminders, and invoice generation. So far, we went through the current challenges that manual contract management faces, and we also talked about how existing features in Solvexia can be a solution to these problems. But what does a smart contract in Solvexia look like? In a simple demo, I created a process based on generating a deal between a Solvexian client and Solvexia. Now, if you think of any contract management process, it will generally involve someone like a salesperson going out and making a deal. That salesperson will need to get the customer to sign a contract. The contract will follow an agreed template and may have certain parameters that need to be input. That contract will need to be populated and then routed through the company for approvals. Ultimately, the contract gets approved and published. And somebody may want to track this whole process and its progress through the approvals. The demo I'm going to show you today is based on our software license contract, but the solution can be easily adapted to any contract management processes. So bear with me until I change the screen. So this is our subscriber view. And through Solvexia Subscriber View, you can design a user interface where within a few simple clicks, you can generate a contract that is customized to your business template. My first drop down here lets me choose a requester, the person who creates the contract. And the second drop down lets me choose the approver, the person who oversees the validity of the contract requested. The next couple of sections allows the user to input various details such as counterparty information, the fees, the usage limitations, the date, terms, and currency, and so on. As soon as I click this button, my process in the backend will use steps such as Excel formulas, Excel to Word, and so on to populate my contract, which will then be sent to the approver through an email. As you can see, this is where my step has stopped at the moment. The approver will then receive two things. If I go to my emails, I can show you guys what those two things are. Should have received an email by now. There you go. This opens an external secured link. And as you can see, my approver received two items. The first item is my draft. This is essentially, here you go. This is essentially the business contracts template, which has been auto-populated with the inputs from my subscriber view, such as my company, the client's name, and all the other information and variables I decided to add. And secondly, my approver also received the summary. The purpose of this summary is to fasten the approval process so that my approver can focus on the main highlights and deviation of this contract. One of the columns that we added was a few simple checks here to quantify the changes from a standard input. For example, if we look into the price for additional process designer user, it was requested to be 1,000 AUD, whereas my standard deal is 1,200 AUD. This is approximately a 17% variance. This column is also color-coded so that my approver can see the minor differences and the medium differences and the critical changes that needs to be approved. So the approver can download the summary, or it can also double check the finer details in my draft and choose to either accept or refuse with comment. Now, if they chose to accept, my process will turn this draft into a proper copy and email it back to my requester. Now, if they decide to decline this request, my approver will receive a different email, which will be sent to the requester notifying the declining of the approval request. Now, as I previously said, as you can see, my contract was declined, so I should have received another email. But I'm going to move on and explain to you about the dashboards. As I previously said, Solvexia also provides the possibility to track this whole process. From the moment my contract is set to be generated to the time it took the approver to respond, we can track this information by inserting them into a managed table and visually populate a live tracker through our online dashboard. For example, as you can see here for my process number 100000, our client is Clearbox Insurance, and my requester Tom sent a request on the 24th of April. And the review date was the same. It was sent to my approver, Ray Davis, and he took about a day to process the requests, and the status was that it was approved. In contrast, we have the Y Corporation client requested by Gary Jones, and the approver, Jamie, decided to decline it. This creates a transparent experience as to where my contract is going, to where it has been, and how it has been modified. Finally, the greatest advantage of automating a contract is that you can save all its content within your database in a digitized format. This data can be married to other sources to automate other fields in your business. For example, the purpose of these contracts is for some kind of business to be conducted down the line. In the case of our software contract, companies use Solvexia and we charge them. So each quarter or year, we need to generate an invoice and send it to the customer. The invoice is based on two things: the usage parameters that were input into the contract, like the cost per user or cost for storage, and the actual usage that the company is making of Solvexia. The great thing is that we already have the contract parameters in a digital format based on based on what I demoed previously. We can combine this with data we collect from each client to automatically produce an invoice. As you can see from this template, my invoice is already set to import the rate per month, the quantity of usage, and formulas to automatically calculate my total, tax, and gross. Hence, if we move on to our second demo, which is the invoicing process, there you go. I can simply select a client. Let's choose Clearbox Insurance, and then my invoicing dates, and also set a due date and automatically create my invoice. So if you just give the system a minute, my invoice should appear right about now. And there you go. You have your invoice ready in no time. So essentially, you don't have to do any calculation, you don't have to do any verification, and you don't really need to remind yourself to send an invoice to your client anymore. You can actually set the process on a schedule run, and it will apply the business logic for you. Now, one last thing I want to show you guys is give me a second. I will go back to my presentation slide. One last thing I want to show you guys is the updates. Now we all know that contracts change. They expire, they need updates, and using the same logic as the invoicing process, you can also set Solvexia to set reminders when contract is about to expire and auto updates when terms and conditions are to change. So to conclude, Smarter Contracts offers a range of benefits from automatically generating, populating, and checking a contract to tracking approval processes and highlighting any deviation from standard terms. It also provides downstream benefits such as the ability to embed calculations in contracts to ensure the fees charged are a true reflection of the contract terms and produce invoices and updates required for payment. Automation is the answer to a seamless and transparent contract generation and management experience that your company needs. So, thank you everyone. This is all I have to show you today regarding smart contracts via Solvexia. I will proceed to take a couple of questions from the audience. So just a reminder that you can use the GoToWebinar control panel to ask your questions. There should be a little text box under the question tab. So my first question is, isn't this another type of process automation rather than a smart contract? Well, yes, you're correct. Our argument is that automation can solve most of the issues that people think they can address with blockchain. Solvexia is such a diverse and flexible platform. Smarter Contracts is simply one of our many case studies. So our second question is, how long does it take to implement the process? So I'm just going to switch back to this bit to make it look nicer. So how long does it take to implement the process? Well, it depends on the complexity of the contract itself and the approval process. It also depends on the layers of features you want to add, but a rough estimate is about 5 to 15 days of implementation. Our third question is, how well does it deal with non-standard deals? Well, first of all, you need to have some sort of standardization before you can consider automating. This is not a solution. This is not a solution for people who have ad hoc or bespoke contracts. The assumption is that around 70 to 80% of your contracts are standardized, with perhaps only certain parameters changing, such as the license fee. The remaining 20 to 30% of contracts can be viewed as non-standard, and depending on their level of deviation, we can look at ways to adapt the process to accommodate them or simply ignore them. So there might still be a handful of contracts that will need to be done manually. Can the solution be white labeled, i.e. own company design? Yes, it can. The solution can be customized to your company's templates and your company's business logic. And the other question is, does the solution scale? Yes, Solvexia operates on servers that handles large volumes of data all hours of the day. So this is one of the key benefits of the solution. You might start with pushing through 5 contracts a month. You might then increase that to 20 contracts a month, and so on. Because the population and checking is automated, you don't need to bring on more people to cope with the increased number of contracts. I'll take one final question, and this one is, how can I be sure that tracking is not compromised? Well, the approvals are sent to named users in Solvexia. So the permissions can be configured such that the people submitting the contracts can't edit the checking or approval rules. We also have audit trails for you to look into whenever you need to. Um, So guys, thank you. This is all from our presentation. If you do have any questions or comments, please contact me at ai@solvexia.com. This session is recorded, so we'll also link you to the recording later on, and you can re-listen to it if you need to. But for now, I will wish you a great day, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.